When Emma Rodriguez approached the reception desk at AeroSpace Dynamics, carrying a cardboard box full of miniature rockets, asking to speak with the CEO about fixing his Mars mission, the entire lobby erupted in laughter until her calculations proved she was right. The 10-year-old girl stood barely 4 feet tall in her faded purple hoodie and patched jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that had seen better days. The cardboard box in her small arms contained what appeared to be a collection of handmade toy rockets, each one meticulously crafted from household materials and painted with careful attention to detail. Before we begin this wonderful story, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now let's get back to the story. "I'm sorry, sweetie," said Rebecca Martinez, the receptionist at AeroSpace Dynamics Houston headquarters, trying to maintain her professional composure despite the absurdity of the situation. "Mr. Kane is in very important meetings today. Perhaps your parents could schedule an appointment?" Emma shifted the weight of her box, her dark eyes serious beyond her years. "I don't have parents. I live with Mrs. Chen at Riverside Foster Home. And Mr. Kane's Mars mission is going to fail in 6 days unless someone fixes the propulsion calculations." The lobby of AeroSpace Dynamics buzzed with the usual activity of America's most ambitious private space company. Engineers in crisp white lab coats hurried past carrying tablets and prototypes, their conversations filled with technical jargon about thrust vectors and orbital mechanics. The walls displayed massive photographs of successful satellite launches and artist renditions of planned Mars colonies, each image representing billions of dollars in investment and decades of research. Robert Kane had built his empire by dreaming bigger than anyone thought possible. At 51, he'd transformed a small satellite manufacturing company into the world's leading private space exploration corporation. His Mars colonization project, dubbed Red Dawn, represented the culmination of 15 years of development and $12 billion in funding. In less than a week, the largest rocket ever built would attempt humanity's first crewed mission to the Red Planet. On the 40th floor of the Aerospace building, Robert stood before a wall of monitors displaying real-time data from the Red Dawn spacecraft's final preparations. His silver hair was perfectly styled, despite the stress of the approaching launch, and his navy blue suit conveyed the authority of a man accustomed to making decisions that shaped the future of human space exploration. "Fuel loading is complete," reported Dr. Michael Chen, his chief technology officer, consulting a tablet filled with telemetry data. "All systems are showing green across the board." Robert nodded, though a persistent worry gnawed at the edge of his consciousness. 3 separate computer models had identified minor anomalies in the propulsion system's efficiency ratings, but his team of world-class engineers had assured him the variations fell within acceptable parameters. "The trajectory calculations have been verified by both MIT and Stanford," Dr. Chen continued. "We're looking at a 7-month journey with a safe landing margin of 12%. Robert's phone buzzed with a call from the front desk. "Mr. Kane," Rebecca's voice carried a mixture of confusion and amusement. "There's a young girl here who claims she needs to speak with you about the Mars mission. She says it's urgent." Robert paused, his attention momentarily diverted from the launch preparations. "A girl? How young?" "Maybe 10 years old. She's carrying a box of what appear to be homemade rockets. Sir, she seems to know specific details about Red Dawn that shouldn't be public knowledge." Robert's security instincts activated immediately. "What kind of details?" "She mentioned propulsion calculations and something about the mission failing. Should I call security?" Robert glanced at Dr. Chen, who was listening with growing concern. In the high-stakes world of space exploration, any security breach could indicate corporate espionage or worse. Send her up, but have security escort her. 20 minutes later, Emma Rodriguez sat in AeroSpace Dynamics' most secure conference room, her cardboard box of rockets arranged carefully on the polished mahogany table. Robert and Dr. Chen sat across from her, flanked by 2 security officers who seemed unsure whether to treat a 10-year-old as a potential threat or an elaborate prank. "Emma," Robert said, his voice gentle but cautious, I understand you have concerns about our Mars mission. Where did you learn about Red Dawn? Emma opened her backpack and pulled out a worn notebook filled with equations, diagrams, and calculations, written in careful pencil. I watch all your launches online. I've been studying your rocket designs for 2 years, ever since I decided I want to be an astronaut. Robert exchanged glances with Dr. Chen. The girl's notebook appeared to contain sophisticated mathematical formulas that would challenge graduate-level aerospace students. Emma, these calculations. Where did you learn to do this kind of math? The library has books about rockets and space, Emma replied matter-of-factly. And Mrs. Patterson at the foster home bought me a used computer so I could watch educational videos online. I teach myself during quiet time. Dr. Chen leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overriding security concerns. Emma, you mentioned that our mission might fail. What makes you think that? Emma's expression grew serious as she flipped to a specific page in her notebook. Your rocket is carrying too much fuel for the size of your engines. Look. She turned the notebook so they could see her detailed analysis. You calculated the fuel requirements based on the rocket's mass at launch, but you didn't account for how the mass change affects efficiency during the journey. Robert felt a chill run down his spine. The girl had identified the exact anomaly that had been troubling his engineering team. Emma, this is very advanced rocket science. Are you sure you understand what you're saying? Emma nodded earnestly. It's like when you're carrying a heavy backpack. At the beginning of a long walk, the weight makes you move slowly. But as you use up the water and snacks inside, the backpack gets lighter and you can walk faster. Your rocket will use fuel during the trip, so it should be able to go faster than your computers think it can. The simplicity of her explanation made the complex physics accessible, but Robert recognized that Emma's understanding went far deeper than her childlike analogy suggested. So you're saying our spacecraft will arrive at Mars ahead of schedule? Not just ahead of schedule, Emma said, opening her cardboard box to reveal one of her handmade rockets. It will arrive going too fast to land safely. Your retro thrusters aren't powerful enough to slow down a spacecraft that's been accelerating more than expected. Dr. Chen took Emma's notebook, studying her calculations with growing amazement. Mr. Kane, her math is correct. She's identified a variable that our simulation models treated as a constant. Robert stared at the 10-year-old girl who had just potentially saved a $12 billion mission and the lives of 4 astronauts. Emma, if you're right, what would you suggest we do? Emma carefully lifted one of her model rockets from the box. I built this one to test different fuel mixtures. See how the engine section is smaller than the fuel tank? That's the opposite of your design. If you reduce the fuel load by 18% and modify the engine configuration like this, she pointed to specific features on her model, the spacecraft will maintain the correct speed throughout the journey. Dr. Chen was frantically inputting Emma's suggestions into his tablet, running preliminary calculations. This is extraordinary. Her proposed modifications would not only solve the landing speed problem, but actually improve overall mission efficiency by 23%. Robert found himself in the surreal position of considering major mission changes based on advice from a foster child with homemade rockets. Yet Emma's insights aligned perfectly with the subtle problems his team had been unable to fully identify. Emma, Robert said carefully, these are brilliant observations, but making changes to a spacecraft 6 days before launch involves enormous risks and costs. What makes you so confident in your calculations? Emma's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Because I test everything. I've launched 93 rockets in the past 2 years, each one teaching me something new about propulsion and trajectory. Want to see? Before Robert could respond, Emma had pulled a small tablet from her backpack, its screen cracked but functioning. She showed them video after video of rocket launches from what appeared to be the backyard of the foster home, small but increasingly sophisticated vehicles climbing higher and flying straighter with each iteration. This one crashed because I used too much fuel, she explained, pointing to footage of a failed launch. This one worked perfectly because I found the right balance between engine size and fuel load. That's when I realized your Mars rocket has the same problem my early designs had. Robert watched the videos with growing fascination. Emma's backyard testing program was more methodical than many professional development projects he'd overseen. Each launch was carefully documented, with modifications noted and results analyzed. "Mrs. Chen at the foster home thinks I'm just playing with toys," Emma continued, "but I'm conducting real experiments. The other kids don't understand why I spend my allowance on rocket engines instead of video games." Dr. Chen looked up from his calculations, his expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Mr. Kane, I've run her numbers through our simulation software. She's absolutely correct. If we launch as currently planned, the spacecraft will arrive at Mars, traveling at 31,847 kilometers per hour, instead of the intended 24,300. Our landing systems can't handle that speed differential." Robert felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. Accepting advice from a child seemed absurd, yet Emma's demonstrations had been flawless, and her understanding of propulsion physics was genuinely impressive. More importantly, the persistent anomalies in his mission calculations suddenly made perfect sense when viewed through Emma's analytical framework. "Emma," Robert said, making a decision that would change multiple lives, "how would you feel about helping our engineering team run these simulations over the next few days?" Emma's face brightened with pure joy. "Really? I could work with actual rocket scientists?" "You could work as an actual rocket scientist," Robert corrected. "We'd need to arrange proper supervision and make sure Mrs. Chen at the foster home approves, but yes." The next morning, Emma Rodriguez walked through the doors of AeroSpace Dynamics wearing a visitor badge and carrying a new notebook that Robert had purchased for her calculations. The sight of a 10-year-old girl being escorted to the engineering department's most classified sections caused considerable stir among the staff. Dr. Sarah Williams, the lead propulsion engineer, initially resisted the idea of involving a child in mission-critical calculations. "Mr. Kane, with all due respect, we have 4 astronauts' lives depending on these systems. This isn't a science fair project." "Show her your calculations, Emma," Robert encouraged, unfazed by Dr. Williams's skepticism. Emma opened her notebook and began explaining her analysis with the same methodical approach she'd shown the previous day. As she spoke, Dr. Williams's expression shifted from dismissive to curious to genuinely impressed. "The fundamental error in our models," Emma explained, drawing diagrams on the conference room whiteboard, "is assuming that fuel consumption remains constant throughout the journey. But as the rocket uses fuel, it becomes lighter, which means the remaining fuel becomes more efficient." Dr. Williams studied Emma's equations, cross-referencing them with computer models on her tablet. "This child has identified a computational oversight that our entire team missed. We've been treating variable mass as a fixed parameter." Over the following 4 days, AeroSpace Dynamics engineering department underwent the most intensive design review in company history. Emma worked alongside PhD-level aerospace engineers, her insights challenging assumptions that had gone unquestioned for years. Her childlike curiosity led to questions that revealed flaws in complex systems, while her methodical testing approach provided elegant solutions to seemingly intractable problems. "She doesn't think like a trained engineer," Dr. Chen explained to Robert during one of their evening briefings. "She thinks like someone discovering physics for the first time, which allows her to see possibilities that our education has taught us to dismiss." The modifications Emma suggested were implemented with unprecedented speed. The Red Dawn spacecraft's fuel load was reduced by exactly 18%. The engine configuration was adjusted according to her specifications, and additional retro thrusters were installed to handle the improved performance characteristics she had predicted. Mrs. Chen from Riverside Foster Home visited AeroSpace Dynamics twice during that week, initially concerned that Emma was being exploited, but gradually recognizing the extraordinary opportunity her foster daughter had been given. "Emma has always been different," she told Robert during their second meeting. "She sees patterns in everything, not just rockets, but music, mathematics, even the way birds fly. The other children at the home call her Space Girl because she's always looking up at the stars." "What would you think about Emma having a more permanent arrangement here?" Robert asked carefully. "We'd like to establish a scholarship program for her education, and I'd personally ensure she has access to the resources she needs to develop her talents." Mrs. Chen smiled, recognizing that Emma had found more than just academic opportunity. "Mr. Kane, Emma has been waiting her whole life for someone to take her dreams seriously. I think this is exactly what she needs." Launch day arrived, with Emma standing in mission control, wearing a specially designed junior flight suit that made her look like the youngest astronaut in history. The massive Red Dawn rocket stood on its launch pad 20 miles away, its modified engines ready to test her calculations on the grandest scale possible. "All systems are go," announced the mission director as the final countdown began. "Red Dawn, you are cleared for Mars." Emma watched the telemetry displays with intense concentration, her small hands clenched with nervous excitement. Everything she had calculated and tested would now be proven or disproven in the most public way imaginable. The rocket lifted off with thunderous power, its trajectory perfectly aligned with Emma's predicted flight path. As it climbed through the atmosphere and into space, data streams confirmed that her fuel efficiency calculations were performing exactly as she had promised. "Mission Control, this is Red Dawn," came the voice of Commander Sarah Walsh from the spacecraft, reporting all systems nominal. "Fuel efficiency is exceeding expectations by 22%. Our trajectory is perfect." Robert looked down at Emma, who was staring at the monitors with tears of joy streaming down her face. "You did it, Emma. Your calculations worked perfectly." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "They're really going to Mars because of rockets I helped design." 7 months later, the Red Dawn spacecraft approached Mars with the precision Emma had predicted. The landing sequence, modified according to her specifications, proceeded flawlessly. Commander Walsh's voice crackled across the vast distance of space. "Mission Control, Red Dawn has successfully landed on Mars. All crew members are safe, and mission objectives are proceeding as planned." Emma, now 11 years old and enrolled in an accelerated aerospace program funded by AeroSpace Dynamics, watched the historic landing from the same mission control room where she had witnessed the launch. Beside her sat Robert Kane, who had officially begun adoption proceedings after recognizing that Emma needed a family as extraordinary as her talents. "Mr. Kane," Emma said, still feeling shy about using more familiar terms, "I've been working on designs for a permanent Mars base. The current plans have some inefficiencies I think I can fix." Robert smiled, remembering the cardboard box of model rockets that had started everything. Emma's new designs were created with access to unlimited resources and the guidance of world-class engineers, but they still retained the innovative spirit that had first caught his attention. "I'd love to see them," he replied, understanding that his greatest achievement wasn't reaching Mars. It was recognizing that the future of space exploration had walked into his office carrying homemade rockets and boundless dreams. 1 year later, the Emma Rodriguez Center for Young Aerospace Engineers opened on the AeroSpace Dynamics campus, providing gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds with access to advanced STEM education and mentorship opportunities. Emma, now 12 and working on her first patent for improved spacecraft propulsion systems, served as both inspiration and active mentor for the program's participants. The center's first class included 15 children from foster homes, low-income families, and immigrant communities, all of them selected not for their test scores or family connections, but for their curiosity about the cosmos and their willingness to dream beyond their circumstances. "Today we're going to build rockets," Emma announced to the group of wide-eyed children ranging in age from 8 to 14. "Not toy rockets, real rockets that can teach us about physics and engineering and maybe even help us reach the stars someday." As Emma guided her students through the same trial and error process that had led to her breakthrough, Robert watched from the observation deck above the workshop. The girl who had once lived in foster care while building rockets in a backyard was now designing the spacecraft that would carry humanity to the stars. Dr. Chen joined Robert at the window, both men observing as Emma patiently helped a young boy understand why his rocket design wasn't achieving stable flight. "She's a natural teacher," Dr. Chen observed. just like she's a natural engineer. She understands something we forgot, Robert replied thoughtfully, that the best way to learn about rockets is to build them, fail, learn why they failed, and build them better. We got so caught up in computer simulations and theoretical models that we stopped testing our assumptions. Down in the workshop, Emma's students were preparing for their first launch. The rockets were simple by aerospace standards, cardboard tubes with basic engines, but each one represented a child's first step toward understanding that the impossible was just an engineering problem waiting for the right solution. Remember, Emma told her students as they walked to the outdoor testing area, every rocket that fails teaches us something valuable. My first 47 rockets crashed, but each crash showed me how to make the next one better. The first rocket of the day lifted off successfully, climbing straight and true before deploying its recovery parachute exactly as designed. The young builder, a 9-year-old girl named Sophia from a local immigrant family, jumped up and down with excitement as her creation descended safely. "It worked!" Sophia shouted. "I can't believe it actually worked!" Emma smiled, remembering her own joy at her first successful launch. "That's just the beginning," she told Sophia. "Now we figure out how to make it go higher or carry a payload or land more precisely. There's always another challenge to solve." As the afternoon progressed and more rockets took flight, Robert reflected on how a child's cardboard box full of impossible dreams had transformed not just a Mars mission, but an entire approach to innovation. Emma had taught him that the most revolutionary breakthroughs often come from minds unburdened by conventional limitations, and that sometimes the future of human space exploration can be changed by someone brave enough to walk into an office with homemade rockets and unwavering faith in the power of testing ideas against reality. 2 years after Red Dawn's successful landing, Emma Rodriguez became the youngest person ever awarded a NASA scholarship for advanced aerospace studies. Her story had inspired a generation of young engineers who understood that the distance between dreams and reality was measured not in light years, but in the willingness to build, test, fail, learn, and build again. Robert Kane had built his empire by pushing the boundaries of what seemed achievable in space exploration. But his greatest success came from learning that the most important discoveries aren't always found in billion-dollar laboratories or advanced computer models. Sometimes they're carried by small hands that see the universe not as it is, but as it could be, one homemade rocket at a time. The girl who had once asked to fix his Mars mission had done something far more valuable. She had fixed his understanding of how innovation really happens, and in doing so, had opened a pathway to the stars for countless other children who dared to dream beyond the boundaries of what adults told them was possible. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.